Welcome to Podcast of the Damned. My name is Oz. This is the first episode. A little background on myself. I have been interested in the paranormal since I was a kid, and I thought that I would do this podcast, one, to have something to do, and two, I'd like to educate people and get more people interested in the paranormal and like urban legends and whatnot, because it's really interesting, and I just am really passionate about this. I started getting into the paranormal when I was around 6 years old. My grandmother was really into like ghosts and stuff, so we would sit down and watch like the paranormal investigative shows like Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters. We also watched this one show I remember very vividly called A Haunting. And it had like a huge impact on me and basically changed my life. So yeah, that's just a little basis of why I'm doing this. So today's episode is going to be talking about Ed and Lorrain Warren, the famous ghost hunters. They brought the paranormal pretty much into the mainstream, and did a bunch of lectures and whatnot, trying to educate people about, what's out there. They have been huge inspirations to me, and they're part of the reason I'm, so invested in the paranormal. Alright, so let's get started with this. Enough of me, rambling on and on about how I'm so inspired. Alright, so Ed Warren was born on December 5th, 1926. He was a self-taught and self-professed demonologist and author, and he was also an artist. Believe it or not, he was actually really good. I've taken a look at some of his paintings, and they were really good. Honestly, I would buy one if I could. When he was 5, he claimed to see a ghost. He said a little ball of light grew until it became the family's landlady who had died the year before. In The Demonologist, The Extraordinary Career of Ed and Lorrain Warren, he said that she was semi-transparent, wearing a shroud, and then she just vanished. And after that, he started having dreams of dead relatives he's never met. And he said one of these dead relatives, which was an aunt, would send him messages about the future. And one of these things was saying that he would help priests, but he wouldn't become a priest himself. And that was actually true. He never did become a priest, but during his and Lorraine's career, they did work very closely with priests. He died at age 79 on August 23rd, 2006. He died due to health issues. During their one trip to Japan, his health ended up getting really bad, and he pretty much had to stay in the hotel room the majority of the time, and Lorraine just handled everything. So, moving on to Lorrain Warren, she was born January 31st, 1927. She was a clairvoyant. It started when she was, one place I read she was 9, another place I read she was 12, so I am not sure, but I'm gonna go with 9, since, the place I heard that from, it was in an actual interview with her. But she had said that she was afraid of it because she was really young when it first started happening, and she felt like she couldn't talk to anyone. But also in another article I read that she just never talked about it really because she just assumed everyone had, was going through that. but she's told a story where it was Arbor Day at her all-girls private school, and her classmates were planting a tree, and she said just as soon as they put the sapling in the ground, I saw it as a fully grown tree filled with leaves and blowing in the wind. When a nun asked her why she was like looking at the sky, she told the nun, I told her I was just looking up into the tree. And the nun responded with, are you seeing the future? And she just said, yes, I guess I am. So she ended up dying at the age of 92 on April 18th, 2019. She died in her sleep in her home in Connecticut. During her and Ed's life, they had a daughter named Judy. They were Roman Catholic, and they were very strong in their beliefs. They also had the belief that demonic forces possess people who lack faith. Which I went to a Christian school from 6th grade to 11th, and that's what we were taught as well. I went to a Lutheran school, and then I went to an evangelical school. But we were taught pretty much the same thing, that, if you believe, it's impossible to get possessed. Which I'm not a Christian now, but I don't know how much I believe that. I don't know, because, I've read a lot of stories where, very Christian families, a family member will get possessed, so I guess, they weren't strong in their faith or something. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. Ed and Lorraine, they both lived in Connecticut and met in 1944. I believe it was in Monroe, Connecticut. They met when they were 16. Ed worked as an usher at a movie theater, and Lorraine and her mother used to go there often. They dated, but a little after that, Ed got sent off to fight in World War II, but they married in 1945. Ed enlisted in the Navy, but he had only been deployed for 4 months when he was sent back home on a 30-day survivor's leave because his ship had sunk in the North Atlantic Sea. But then he was on a short break, and then he returned back to the war. How they started investigating haunted houses and the paranormal, whatever. But after the war, they were trying to figure out how to make a living. Lorraine had said each of us had skills as landscape artists, and we each harbored a desire to paint. So Ed had taken art classes, and then she said we began our marriage under the assumption that we were going to be artists. They actually did incorporate their art into their work. They would find supposed haunted houses in newspapers, and then they'd go to the houses and sketch them. Then they'd knock on the door, offer the sketch to the homeowners in return for information about the haunting. And if the story was good enough, they'd paint the house and then sell the artwork later. They spent 5 years doing this, just painting and then investigating haunted houses. But what's funny enough is, despite Lorraine's experience with clairvoyance, Lorraine didn't believe in ghosts until later in life, after her and Ed began visiting and painting these haunted houses. She said, in the beginning, I was more than a bit wary of people with whom we spoke. She said that I thought they were kind of suffering from overactive imaginations, or were just making things up to get attention. But then she started noticing similarities between the experiences, including from people who had never met. And they were from opposite sides of the country, and then she became a believer. Which I think is kind of cool. She was a skeptic at first, and then, over time she started believing, and then, became the famous Lorraine Warren. They founded the New England Society for Psychic Research in 1952, And it is the oldest paranormal research group in the country. It's also a museum. It holds a variety of different objects from their cases, including the infamous Annabelle doll. I will be covering her in another episode. It has vampire coffins, a child's tombstone that was supposedly used as a satanic altar. Most of the objects are possessed by spirits. They have more sinister items in their collections, such as demon masks, tools used in satanic rituals, and even death curses. It's said that every night at 9 p.m., the museum goes into the witching hour, and an old organ starts to play by itself. I think that's really cool. Like, I would love to go to this museum, like, around that time, and just see everything go nuts. That would be really cool. I'd love to get a video of it. I'm sure there's a video out there. I need to try to find that, because it seems really cool. But they keep the Annabelle doll in a display box with the Devil Tarot card, which is very concerning. It's very creepy. I mean, it's a creepy looking Raggedy Ann doll. What do you expect? I expect those things to be haunted. My friend had one growing up, and every time I'd spend the night at her house, I'd make her put it in the closet, because that thing scared the living crap out of me. It also has a sign on the display case that says, "Warning, positively do not open." Lorrain has stated that she is the worst object in the museum. So, if that says anything, then don't touch it. Absolutely don't go near this thing. Like, I would stay on the opposite side of the room. Like, I would not look at this thing. I would not go near it. There was a story about a guy who visited the museum, and he started taunting Annabelle, saying, "Oh, if she's real, do something." And on the way home from the museum, he crashed his motorcycle and died. I heard that story circulating around, but it was debunked. It wasn't true. I just thought it was creepy. But I will go over more of Annabelle's story in another episode. She'll get her whole own show. Don't worry. But the museum is closed permanently because there's a bunch of like zoning issues. But it'll reopen eventually once they find a new location. I hope they do soon, because I really want to go and visit. Like, I have wanted to go to this museum for years, and I never got the opportunity to go. There was actually a rumor that the Annabelle doll escaped when the museum was shut down. This was later debunked, as the doll is now with the Warren's son-in-law, Tony Spera? Spera. I don't know how to pronounce that. I am terrible with pronunciations, so forgive me. The Warrens also wrote several books. A couple of them are Graveyard, Ghost Hunters, The Haunted, In a Dark Place, Werewolf, and Satan's Harvest. These are all available on Amazon, and I haven't read any of them, but I plan to, because they seem interesting, and I want to, I would love to give them a read. I love reading books. I haven't read any in a while. The last book I read was It, and I made it like a chapter in because I can't focus enough. But I'm gonna start reading again. See, I tell myself this every couple of months, and I never do it. But a couple of their notable cases, they conducted over 100 individual cases, and they involved police, doctors, priests, and other people. But their most notable are, of course, the Annabelle case, the Amityville Horror, the Enfield Poltergeist, the Arnie Johnson case, or, as the movie says, the Devil Made Me Do It case, the Snedeker House. I'm so sorry, I'm pronouncing these horribly. The Smurl family, Union Cemetery, and the Perrin family. There is a lot of controversy surrounding the Warrens' cases concerning their credibility. For instance, the Lindley Street haunting in Bridgeport, Connecticut. This house was dubbed the most haunted house in America. And the Warrens said it was the most important poltergeist case of the last 100 years. The story starts off as any poltergeist case does, furniture moving and things flying off the wall, knives being thrown. But here's where it gets weird. One of the major points in the case was the claim that the family cat named Sam could talk, and the story that someone in the family heard Sam singing Christmas carols in the basement. Which, at that point, if I was investigating a haunted house and one of the family members came up to me and was like, yeah, the cat sings in the basement, I'd be like, huh, bullshit, and just fucking leave. Like, that just seems too unbelievable for me. But the daughter of the house owners, Laura and Gerard Gooden, had admitted she made the whole thing up and she caused all of the events. But the Warrens didn't believe it. They didn't think a kid was capable of causing the incidents that they witnessed. I don't know, because kids can do some pretty weird shit. Because, I mean, I have a little brother. He's 9. And sometimes he does things, and it's like, how the fuck did you do that? Like, how did you do that? And, I mean, I do believe that, the daughter made it up. I really do believe it. Because, the whole cat talking thing is a little much. I mean, as much as, I love Ed and Lorraine Warren, as much as they've inspired me, I don't know. But, one of their most, controversial cases, the one with the least credibility, is the Snedeker case. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I don't know. I'm so sorry. It got made into the movie The Haunting in Connecticut. I'm not gonna run through the whole story, but for a bit of background, Carmen and Alan Snedeker moved into the house with their 3 kids, and they discovered that the house had been a funeral parlor. The eldest son said he began seeing spirits and other scary visions. And I'm gonna put a little trigger warning here. This does mention sexual assault, so if you're sensitive to that, I understand. You can skip ahead. But the parents claim to have been sodomized and sexually assaulted by demons. And in one instance, the water in the mop bucket Carmen was using to clean the floor turned into blood and smelled like decaying flesh, sorry. I can't read. But it's a pretty crazy story, to say the least. There has been a lot of well-deserved skepticism. I'm not a skeptic by any means, but I'm skeptical about this case. Because their stories didn't really mesh together, they didn't fit, and they couldn't keep them lined up. There was a novelist, Ray Garton. He said he went to Ed to discuss this with him because he had noticed that. He noticed, their stories didn't line up. He talked to Ed about it, and Ed said, and I quote, this is a quote from Ed Warren, "Oh, they're crazy. You've got some of the story. Just use what works and make the rest up. Just make it up and make it scary." So, this really, really, brings their credibility into question. Because if the Warrens were willing to make up a story, just, for the hell of it, what else did they fake? Which other cases of theirs did they fake? I know it was probably for publicity, but I do believe, when they were starting out, they were honest with it. But as they, grew in popularity, they started fabricating and making things seem more scary than they actually were. Because you want to keep people interested. And this case took place in 1986, right at the time of the Satanic Panic. So people were eating this stuff up. I think they saw that and decided to take advantage of it. This, like, I feel the same way about paranormal investigation shows. There really isn't a paranormal show out there that doesn't fake evidence. Like, that's just my opinion. Like, I feel like all of them do to an extent. Like, especially if they aren't getting good results. So people, like, keep watching. And I'm saying this as a fan. Like, I grew up with Ghost Adventures. Hell, Zach Bagans, you know, he was a huge inspiration to me as a kid. Like, I wanted to be him. Like I said before, like, I looked up to the Warrens. But as disappointing as it is, I can't just believe everything they say. Like, you have to take things with a grain of salt and, like, take a closer look at things. But back to the story, there's little to no proof that anything actually happened in the house. The landlord of the house has also stated that he's never had any paranormal experiences, and neither did past tenants. So it's kind of safe to say that this story just isn't true. And, you know, I hate to think that it's not true, but, you know, there's sufficient evidence that, you know, it isn't. But one of their other notable cases is the Arnie Johnson trial, also known as the Devil Made Me Do It case. This event sparked a media frenzy. There were 2 books written on it, and it inspired The Conjuring 3. I will also be doing a separate episode on this case, so I really don't want to give too much away, in case there's someone out there who hasn't heard it. But Arnie was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison for murdering his landlord. He used the defense that he was possessed by a demon. In the Amityville case, Ronald DeFeo believed he was possessed, but they went towards, like, insanity for his defense. They didn't, you know, be like, oh, he was possessed. But Arnie only ended up serving 5 years. The case made headlines across the world. Prior to the murders, Ed and Lorrain had helped the Glatzel family with their son David, who they claimed was possessed by the same demon. And then this demon then transferred itself to Arnie, who is David's sister's boyfriend. There is also a documentary on, I think it's Discovery Plus, about this case, and it has, like, the actual family members doing interviews and, like, police officers and whatnot. But yeah, I watched that documentary. It was pretty good. I also saw The Conjuring 3, and I liked it. It was good. I mean, I'm always a fan of the Conjuring universe. But like I said before, I am going to be going over this case in another episode, so I didn't want to go, like, too in-depth. I'm also going to be doing an episode on Amityville, you know, all the good stuff. That's why I wanted to do an episode on Ed and Lorraine Warren, just to give you guys, you know, a little background to who they were, so you're not, like, if you haven't heard of them, you're not like, oh, who are these people? What are they about? So they're not just names, which, honestly, if you're, like, into the paranormal like I am, you know who Ed and Lorraine Warren are. But anyway, their cases have spawned a whole cinematic universe. It includes The Conjuring, The Conjuring 2. The Conjuring 2 is, like, one of my favorites out of the whole Conjuring universe. The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. Annabelle, Annabelle Comes Home. Annabelle Creation. The Nun, which I thought was really scary. A lot of people didn't like it, but I loved it. I was, like, peeking through my hands, like, the entire way through the story. I love horror movies, but I watch them through my fingers. And The Curse of La Llorona. Again, the pronunciations are killing me. The movies are based off of the real stories, but of course they've been played up for the sake of entertainment. I haven't watched The Curse of La Llorona, so I don't think that's one of that's not one of their cases. I should know this, because I'm doing a whole podcast on them. They played a lot of it up for the sake of entertainment, and they added like new characters like Phallic and whatnot. I really like Phallic though. She's so creepy. Like, oof. I would hate to see like her face in the middle of the night. I think I'd probably shit myself, as anyone would if they see a creepy ass nun standing in the corner of their room. But I love these movies. I like how it brings Ed and Lorraine like back into the spotlight, because I feel like it's getting younger audiences into the paranormal. It's getting them interested in learning about who they were. For the first Conjuring movie, Lorraine Warren, the real Lorraine Warren, had a cameo in the beginning scene during the lecture, like when they're in the college, you know, she was like in the front row. She did a interview with Vera Farmiga about the movies. She had nothing but nice things to say about the actors, Patrick Wilson and Vera, and also the director, James Wan. She said she was pleased with how it turned out. She also expressed how she didn't want the filmmakers to make something that wasn't solved, and wanted it to be as accurate as possible. I read over the Perrin family case, and I thought the first movie was pretty close to what happened. But as we saw, like, in the later films, especially the third one, they started straying further away and, like, made the story their own. Which isn't a bad thing, but I feel like Lorraine's death really contributed to the third film being as wild as it is. But I'm happy that Lorraine wanted the movies done right, and was a big part of its production. She did have one issue with the film, though. She said, and I quote, "There were a lot of things you couldn't do, though. Of course, anything that pertained to religion or things like that, you weren't able to do that. Sad, but you weren't able to do it. But I think they did very well." She did express in that same interview that she would like one of her cases from England to be made into a movie, which actually happened in the second Conjuring film. I don't know if she got to see that one. Oh my god, my chair scared the shit out of me. It squeaked and it sounded really weird. I don't know if she got to see that movie, but because she died in 2019. Let me check when that because I forget when the second Conjuring came out. 2016, so a couple years before she died. Yeah, so she'd be happy to know that, you know, the Enfield Poltergeist was made into a movie. I'm really excited to see what other cases they make movies on, because I doubt they're gonna stop making them. I've heard rumors a couple years ago that they were gonna make a movie about the Crooked Man that was in the second Conjuring. I really hope it gets made, because I really enjoyed the scenes with him in it, and I love that he's done in like a stop motion style. I love stop motion so much, and I wish they would do more movies like that, because it's really died out. That I've noticed, like, you don't really see much stop motion anymore. But the case that I would really like to see in the Conjuring universe would be the Billy Ramsey case. I think it would make a really good movie. I don't know if I think it'd be a little too out there for the franchise, but in that case, you know, it was claimed he was a werewolf, and I'm like a huge fan of werewolves. They're like one of my favorite mythological creatures, because I'm that edgy kid that likes wolves, you know. But I think it would be a fun movie, and I would love to see how they turned that into, like, how they would, like, translate that into a movie. Because in the case, like, people claimed, like, oh, he turned into a werewolf. Like, not an actual werewolf, but, like, he started to resemble a werewolf, and he would, like, bite. He, like, bit a nurse when he went to the ER, and some say it was possession, some say he was an actual werewolf. So, we don't know. Needless to say, like, their impact on the paranormal community was, you know, pretty significant, and even on, like, I really haven't met anybody that doesn't know who Ed and Lorraine Warren are. I honestly don't, but that's probably because everybody, like, I talk to, like, that I, like, try to interact with are fans of the paranormal and fans of, horror. So, yeah, obviously they know. Hell, even my mom knows who they are. Like, she's not a fan of, like, ghosts at all. Like, even though I drag her along to every horror movie known to man, and I know she's listening to this, so hi Mom, here's your little shout out. How you doing? But I drag her to every horror movie. But even before, like, we started going to theaters to see them, because I was scared to go see them on the big screen, because I was like, oh no, it's gonna be too spooky. Even before then, she knew who they were. Probably because of my grandmother, but nonetheless, she's heard of them. Sorry, I'm just rambling on. But they were the first people to speak openly about the paranormal. Back when they first started, people were, like, kind of afraid to speak on, like, about ghosts in, like, fear of backlash and judgment. Which is understandable considering the time, because, like, you said you saw a ghost, they threw you in a nut house. And it was, like, kind of like taboo in a way. I don't know the right word. They were really open, like, to the media, and, like, even helped police with cases that had, like, paranormal tones to them. Which I think is, like, really cool. That, like, the police were like, yeah, sure, you could help. But they really did help bring the paranormal into the mainstream and got people to start taking their research seriously. Their first goal was just to, like, investigate hauntings, but, like, as time went on, they made it their mission to, like, help families and also the spirits. They wanted people to be able to feel safe in their homes without, like, negative spirits or demons, but they also wanted to help the spirits that were trapped find their way to the other side. And I really appreciate that aspect of their work, because, these spirits were humans at one point, and, like, they deserve to be at rest. I think more people need to think about that. These ghosts were people, and their souls sometimes, get trapped here, and they can't move on. I like when people, like, actually do, like, cleanse houses and, like, help, the spirits move on to the other side. I mean, that's just, I have a lot of respect for them for doing that. And they understood to treat these spirits with respect. Now, I can't say the same for, like, the negative spirits or, like, the, demons or whatever. Because, yeah, no, send those fuckers back to hell. But they inspired, like, a lot of paranormal investigators and enthusiasts like myself, and they dedicated their lives to educating people. They started giving lectures because of the growing interest in the occult in the late 1960s. Like, a lot of the people they saw that were affected by, like, the dark phenomena. That's such a funny word. I'm sorry. The darker side of it were college students. So they hoped that, like, through their lectures, they would actually, funny enough, discourage people from, like, exploring the occult. So I guess it's safe to say they didn't want people to go out and, like, do their own investigating. Because, like, I understand that, since, like, especially the places that are known to be haunted by, like, demons and, all that evil, like, negative energies. I do understand that, because it is really easy to get things to attach to you, like, for things to attach themselves to you, because it's like walking into a house that has, like, demons in it. It's like, stepping in gum. Like, you're gonna bring something home with you, especially if you're not in the right mindset and you're in, like, a bad spot in life, because demons are attracted to your negative energy that you're putting out. If you're going through a hard time and you're just not mentally there, they will attach themselves to you. You know, I've had experience with this. And you really have to be careful. Because I've heard countless stories of people, like, going to investigate places and then they come home and something follows them. Or, like, you know, God forbid, you know, when a stupid teenager, you know, goes into, like, a haunted house and brings something home with them, like, actually takes an object, brings it home with them, and, oh, you got yourself a new roommate. And not the good kind. But, yeah, I could see why they, you know, they didn't want people to go out, because it's really easy to get a demon attached to you. Especially, you know, like I said before, if you're not in the right mindset. And you really, really don't want that to get attached to you, because it's so hard to get rid of. I know. I've had my experiences with negative spirits and demons. And I would never want to go through it again. It was the scariest thing that has, like, ever happened to me. And I would rather deal with, you know, people any day over ghosts and demons. It's scary. Like, how do you fight something you can't see? And that's why a lot of people are afraid. Like, I'm not afraid of, like, the friendly spirits, like the ones that are pretty much harmless. I'm afraid of the demons and the negative energies, because they can cause some real damage. Like, I lived in a house that was haunted when I was a kid. Like, one of the stories that, like, one of the experiences that really stuck out with me was, I forget how old I was, but I was young, and I had had a nightmare. And the way my house, this is important for the story to know how my house was set up. There was the living room, and then there was a stairway that was leading up the stairs, and then there was a landing. And when you would go up the stairs, my room was on the left. And then if you would turn right, there were 3 stairs. And on top of those stairs, there was a little hallway, and on the left, there was the bathroom, and on the right, there was my mom's room. And I had a nightmare, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to my mom's room, because I want to sleep with her tonight. So I get up, and I'm standing on top of this landing, and I look down the stairs, and I see my mom standing down there. And I look at her, and I'm like, Mom, I had a nightmare, can I come sleep with you? And then, like, I look forward, like, up the stairs for a minute, and I look back, and she's already up the stairs. And I'm like, how did she move that fast? But I was tired, and, you know, I was young, so I wasn't really processing much. And as I was going up the little stairs to get to my mom's room, I stumbled, and my mom was right next to me, and, like, I fell against her, and I felt her right next to me. She was warm, and I felt her clothes, and I look up at her, and she looks down at me, and I realize she has no eyes. There's just black holes where her eyes should be. And let me tell you, I shit myself. I go flying up the rest of the stairs into my mom's room. I leap into her bed, and she, like, jumps up. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I had a nightmare. Let me sleep with you. And she's like, okay. And she, you know, turns over, and then I look at the doorway, and whatever this thing is leaning into the room, and it looks at me, and then leans out of the room, and it, you know, just disappears. That was possibly the most terrifying night of my life, because it's like there is something impersonating my mom. Like, that, I know for a fact that wasn't my mother. And it's scary that, like, these beings can do that. Like, it scares the shit out of me, knowing what these things are capable of. Like, I have a bunch of other stories. I'm not gonna tell all of them. Like, you'll hear them eventually. But, I mean, I might do a whole separate episode on, just my scary stories alone. But there have been times when, when I was in college, there was a dorm, and I was stupid enough to play with a Ouija board. The second time I've ever played with a Ouija board, and it ended in disaster. Don't ever use one. I'm just putting that out there right now. Do not use a Ouija board. Because they will wreck your shit. That dorm, I must have summoned something. And there have been, there was 2 instances in that house where I almost called the police because it sounded like somebody had broken into my house. And I mean, this was in a bad neighborhood, and we did have someone try to break in, but they never, got in. But it's I know for a fact there was no one in the house, because the one time it was Christmas break, and everyone was gone but me, and the footsteps I heard, I had been up for a while, and all of a sudden, I just hear footsteps thundering down the stairs. I hear the front door swing open and slam shut. But I didn't hear anyone come in, and that door was locked. That front door and the back door was locked when I went to sleep, because this was in the morning, but I had not gotten up and unlocked the doors yet. So I have no clue what the hell it was, but it wasn't a person. It was not a person. But yeah, so I totally get why they didn't want people digging deeper into the occult, exploring on their own. But yeah, that I think I'm gonna end that here. That seems like a good note to end on. Don't mess with things you don't understand, and don't mess with demons. Very good advice. Best life advice you'll ever get. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Go and follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is POTD_official, and my Twitter is POTD_official_. I will be keeping you updated on new episodes and a little bit of the behind the scenes through my Twitter and Instagram. And if you guys have any recommendations about stories you want to hear, topics you want to hear me discuss, just let me know. Let me know in the comments. And if you think I could be doing something better, I know I need to get better on, my speaking. But if you guys think I could be doing something better, let me know. I would love to hear you guys' feedback. So, yeah, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you in the next episode. See ya.